This next story is very important, which is why I'm covering it. It is one of those battles between us, the people, and them. There's a lot more to it than meets the eye, so let's listen carefully.
Westpac's stunning win over ESIC, accusations of 250,000 cases of irresponsible lending thrown out of court. Westpac has gone from agreeing to pay a record $35 million fine to having ESIC pay its legal costs. A landmark responsible lending case against the bank was today dismissed in the federal court. And banks will be celebrating.
It was the test case on borrowers' expenses that's proved very expensive for the corporate cop.
This is a blow for ASIC, but more importantly, it's a blow for the community.
Today, the federal court threw out ASIC's claim that Westpac broke the law with nearly 262,000 home loans and ordered the regulator to pay the bank's costs. That's despite Westpac last year admitting to breaching responsible lending laws. It was prepared to pay a record $35 million fine for the way it assessed thousands of home loans through an automated system. But the court refused to rubber stamp the settlement, sending the case to a hearing. The crux of the case is when a bank should lend. The law requires lenders to assess whether a customer can service a loan without substantial hardship. The judge rejected ASIC's claim that a customer's actual living expenses must be used in assessing the loan.
So let's get this right. So the judge has thrown the case out of court saying ESIC, the corporate cop, a body and the organization that's been set up by the government, paid by the taxpayers, said. So the court said, no, you don't have the case. The Westpac, the banks, when assessing the loans, really shouldn't use the applicants' exact and actual spending patterns, people's actual expenses. So what were they to use? Imaginary expenses or no expenses? I mean, isn't that the most important thing? How much money are you spending on other things and whether you're going to be able to pay your repayments or meet your repayments?
In more than 250,000 cases, Westpac admitted to defaulting to what's called the household expenditure measure. The HEM benchmark takes the median household spending on absolute basics like toilet paper and utilities. It assumes a lowball estimate for spending on things like alcohol, sports lessons and domestic holidays.
Okay, so let's analyze what we've got so far. So this Australian Securities and Investments Commission, which is the government organization and the body that is supposed to regulate the banks, right? So this is us, the people funding it. So that's on the left side. And then on the right-hand side, we got the Westpac, which is one of the big four banks in Australia. It's a private company or it's a publicly listed company. But it is a corporation. There is no face behind it. There is a CEO and board of directors, but there's no face. This is why it's called corporation, because corporation, corpse, that's where it comes from. It's dead. It doesn't have the biological entity. Now let's imagine in the middle up on top here is the courts. This is where the judges are. They're appointed, don't quote me on this, but obviously funded by the government, which is again us, the people, the taxpayers, and appointed there by someone. In any case, it is supposed to be neutral, unbiased, and fair, just, right? So chronologically now, Westpac last year admitted to be doing the wrong things and issuing about 260,000 mortgages to people who weren't supposed to get them. They weren't being responsible. There was an automated system where I suppose you just needed to be able to fog up a mirror, you'd get a loan, you'd get approved. Instead, they should have checked people's real expenses, actual expenses, which is what you think should be happening when you're assessing every case. Now, this independent body called the courts has thrown out the case out of the court saying, no, why should a bank need to go out there and examine people's actual expenses as opposed to, I don't know, like I said before, some imaginary expenses or no expenses. Just assume there are no expenses. And we all know that we all have different lifestyles. Many people can live a lot more or a lot less than others. So Westpac admitted to be doing the wrong things. ESIC picked up on it, took him to court, and the court said, no, Westpac, we know that you admitted that you did something wrong last year, and this exact thing that we have now here in front of us, the court case, that's fine. We'll let you off the hook. And here, coming up, is exactly why, in my opinion, they've done it. Property market is a sacred cow. You are not supposed to touch it. You are supposed to have this pyramid scheme, Ponzi scheme, running as long as possible, because that's what keeps the system going. They need to get as many people into the system, paying off the interest and the loans, buying the properties that they're building, be it the high-rise apartments that now are having issues and cracks, or the houses that have been built so far away from all the infrastructure in the city that it's absolutely ridiculous. You wouldn't be able to do that unless you sucked as many people into that system as possible, get them into mortgages, hopefully get them jobs so they can barely, hopefully, be able to be repaying those mortgages. So remember the sacred cow?
The case was closely watched by other banks, as an ASIC win could have led to more stringent requirements for assessing home loans.
So if Westpac lost this case, if ASIC, which is the body, once again, that we fund, won the case, banks wouldn't be able to lend irresponsibly, which at least Westpac admitted to be doing, which in turn would then prevent more people, or pretty much everyone, from getting a loan. So meeting the legal requirements is not good for business. Hence, they can't allow to do that. Having said all this, I'm not a lawyer. This is what I know about the case. However, one doesn't need to go into details when they spell it out for you in this very good report, where you can get the gist of it and actually see what's happened between the lines.
The difficult question for a bruised ASIC: does it go back to court or play a longer game and try and change the rules?
So let's analyze the winners and the losers in this case. So we've got the ESIC on one side and the Westpac on the other side. So ESIC got paid. The lawyers, the people involved in this, got paid by the taxpayers. And then the Westpac, who admitted to be doing the wrong things, yet the court, let's call it in the middle, has come out with a decision and the settlement of the findings that Westpac did nothing wrong. Now the lawyers on the Westpac side got paid. Now the judges in the courts got paid, and the whole system works. So who lost? I think it's us, the people, who lost. And by saying this, I don't really want to get you angry. I don't want to be angry, because when you're angry, you can't think and make good, rational decisions. And they're obvious. If you're somebody who's looking to get a mortgage, which at the moment, not financial advice, opinion, I wouldn't be getting. But if you are to buy a property to live in and getting a mortgage, do not get over your head, because you don't want to be drowning later on. If the property is looking like it's turning the corner and the fear of missing out is setting in, take a deep breath, look at it rationally and just say, this is still completely insane, I'm not going there. Which brings me back to the libertarian type of conclusion, because deep down inside I'm a libertarian, where adults need to be able to do whatever they want as long as they're not hurting anyone else. So is it Westpac's fault that they issued 260,000 loans to people that more or less shouldn't have had them? I don't think it is. There should be some personal responsibilities, and what I just said before, you assess your own financial situation, and if you can't afford it, don't go there. It shouldn't be some corporation in whose interest it is to give you a loan to decide whether you should have a loan. Get a financial advisor, or just simply put it down on the paper and see what your repayments are going to be and whether you can meet those repayments. If you can't, and or you think that even if you can meet those repayments, the property or the asset, in this case the property, the house that you're buying, is too expensive, overvalued, in your opinion, or your personal research, once again, don't go there. Don't blame Westpac and the big banks for giving you the loan. Don't ask the barber if you need a haircut. Same thing, right? Common sense. The act of thinking and common sense is so underrated. So let's think and keep the cool heads. That'll do for this video. Stay tuned for more videos and we'll talk again soon. Bye for now. Take care.